There are so many different stories to talk about every single day. It's getting overwhelming, but I absolutely love this. This is the time of the year before total chaos at the NHL Draft, during NHL free agency, and inevitably the storm before the calm, when things really die down in August of 2025. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to trying to do an entire show for a month's worth of time in August. But for now, heading into the 2025 NHL Draft, we have ourselves some bad news for the Montreal Canadiens, Kent Hughes, and Ivan Demidov as well. Not necessarily news about these guys in particular, but news that revolves around them. I wanted to turn your attention to an article posted on sportsnet.ca yesterday by Eric Engels that gives us some insight as to how the Montreal Canadiens' trade potential is being lowered by current market dynamics. The article essentially talks about the Canadiens and the overarching sentiment that Habs fans believe about this team. They are young. They are trying to get better. They made the playoffs and everybody was happy with that. The season was great. But now the question is, how do they go forward from here? This isn't necessarily a team who can use their 16th and 17th overall picks and draft meaningful pieces that will help them in this current window. At best, they get themselves a guy that maybe makes the NHL in 2026-2027, but with the core that the team has already, Demidov, Slafkovsky, Hudson, Suzuki, Caulfield, you could very well say there's already a necessity to try to contend right now. Not because they're going to win the cup anytime soon, but because contending right now, being in the playoffs, consistently winning games, and being seen as one of those more feared teams in the Atlantic is beneficial for the long-term careers of that core. These guys are young, and this is the time where they can probably start being competitive. Which is why the Canadiens trading away 16 and 17 for some sort of forward support, second-line center support, has always been an overarching idea for Canadiens fans. This article, however, provides us with the brutal truth about what the status quo seems to be for Kent Hughes and the Habs. Take a look at what Engels writes about here. In an ideal world, the Montreal Canadiens would use their 16th or 17th overall picks, or both, in the first round of the upcoming draft to immediately improve their team via trade. The real world, however, might not present them with that opportunity between now and when they're called to make their selections on Friday. As of this writing, it appears it won't. Multiple sources have confirmed what's already been widely reported. One team, Pittsburgh, has established itself as a traditional seller, and just about every other one wants to buy, using futures as the currency of choice. The Canadiens are rich in futures. In addition to their first-round picks, they have 2 in the second, 3 in the third, and 5 more in this draft in rounds 4 through 7. They have another 16 banked over the next 2 drafts, and they have one of the deepest and richest prospect pools in all of hockey to deal from. Now that's all fine and dandy. The Habs have a lot of prospects, the Habs have a lot of picks, but why exactly is this a bad news update for Montreal? Well, it's because the market is in a pretty weird spot. Outside the Pittsburgh Penguins, there doesn't seem to be any NHL team that's in the business of selling away whatever good roster forwards they have right now for draft picks. You have teams all over that are looking for a second-line center. You've got teams that are bad, that are trying to claw on to whatever hope they've got and trying to remain competitive. It is really just Pittsburgh that is in a seller's mental capacity, which feels so wrong when you think about Sidney Crosby and the fact that he is still over there. Imagine trying to rebuild and sell all of your assets when you have Crosby on your team. But I digress. This is why Eric Engels goes out there and says that despite the fact that Kent Hughes has all these draft picks, he has all of these prospects, he's already said he's inclined to spend more of those assets than he should on an established player, instead of doling out a boatload of cash on a long-term deal for a UFA. But unless a couple of teams have some sort of wake-up call over the coming week, Hughes might only be adding more prospects to his overcrowded pool on the weekend. Over this past weekend, one rival executive told us he's facing the same reality. Nearly every team wants to take a step forward and acquire roster players, but none of them really want to sell the ones that they have, he said. There could end up being a lot of movement come November when some of these teams realize adding over the summer wasn't really in their best interest to begin with. I'm sure there will be some trades now, some hockey deals, but it's going to be quieter than a lot of people are hoping for. And that bodes very, very poorly for Kent Hughes and his hockey team. Because I think it's easy to say that for what the Canadiens are building right now, what they have on their team as a roster, an NHL roster right now, yeah, there's a lot of top-end talent and there's a lot of potential, especially in the future, but right now, the Canadiens, if they want to be competitive and they want to make the playoffs and do some damage in the playoffs, they need to get more good players, especially with some of the ones that are going to be on their way out. I mean, yeah, you have a really nice young core, but you just need more. That's pretty much it. You need more for Ivan Demidov. You need more because Kirby Dach isn't really the guy that you can rely on to be that guy. This is what the article even says. For the Canadiens, they're not intending on forcing the issue. Do they want to bolster up their top six? Absolutely. Do they want to make the 2026 playoffs to follow up their 2025 appearance? Absolutely. But the Canadiens will not jam a square peg into a round hole just to achieve those objectives, especially at the risk of interfering with their main objective of building a perennial Stanley Cup contender down the line. Essentially, the main thought that Engels is writing about here is that the Montreal Canadiens might just be forced to sit back, relax, and enjoy that 16th and 17th overall pick instead of finding a way to get that second-line center for Ivan Demidov. Especially since Kent Hughes already said that he's more interested in making a trade rather than shelling out some big money for a dude in free agency. That bodes poorly for Ivan Demidov if you're looking for him to get his prime center to be on that second line for Montreal. It's just the way the market is, where we don't really think there are many teams willing to sell unless you're talking about maybe everybody except Crosby in Pittsburgh. Malkin? He's probably not going to waive. He is probably going to stick around in Pittsburgh. The rest of this article goes out there and talks about the draft itself and what the Canadiens can do with said draft picks and how they can use them. This is what Jeff Gorton went out there and said. They do have a long-term plan, and they do not have any intention of diverging from it. I think we can have that restraint. I do think we're in a situation where we have talent coming. We have a nucleus that's forming. I do think that we don't necessarily just go chase something just to chase it. He still intimated that they'll be aggressively chasing pieces that would bolster and balance their group, and league sources have confirmed that him and Hughes have been doing exactly that over the past number of weeks. It should come as no surprise they're willing to move at least one of their first-rounders in a package for the right player. But the value of both their picks on the market is, at this point, diminished by a host of teams around them dangling their own first-round picks. Buffalo picks 9th, Anaheim 10th, the Rangers 12th, Detroit 13th, Columbus 14th, and Vancouver 15th. And all of these teams appear willing to forfeit their picks for roster players that can potentially help them move up in the standings. If any of them are successful, it'll only increase the chances of the Canadiens using 16 and 17 to draft guys instead of trading them. So with all this in mind, I want you to answer me this very simple question. 16th and 17th in the NHL draft this year. Are these guys Habs draft picks, or are they not? Very simple question, very simple answer. Do you think this is as bad of a deal as it is for Hughes and Ivan Demidov? Let me know in the comments section all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Roll 9, and bye.